applause. So yeah, a bit of a change to the advertised lineup, but yeah, so Paul Christian's puking his guts up in a hotel room, so think about it. So yeah, hello, I'm Jamie from Supple Studio down in Bath. Took me 5 hours to get here yesterday, so you better appreciate that. Yeah, it's a fucking long way away, especially with the trains don't work. So yeah, my talk, I've called it Big Ideas, Small Ideas. I'm just going to talk about different types of ideas. First, just talk about how I know the other speakers. Jim Sutherland is my ex-boss and my friend, but my first job in 2001 was at Hattrick Design, working with Jim, quite a formative job. So yeah, nice to be on the same bill as him. Christian, who's peeking his guts up, is actually my landlord. It's kind of weird. I don't own the pub. He runs a design studio in Bath as well, and we sort of share space. So yeah, but I also know him through design. Craig, every fucker knows Craig. So. But in seriousness, I met Craig at a G&AD book launch years and years ago, and we had a fun night in the pub, and we've remained friends ever since. So again, it's nice to just be on the line-up with people that you know and respect. Right, what is an idea? This is a big one, isn't it? For me, an idea is always about a unique and relevant solution to a communication problem. It sounds kind of grand, but you know, it's about answering briefs for clients. We're commercial artists, we're working with briefs that, you know, have business problems and you need to communicate something. And for me, the really important bit is the relevance. You know, unique is nice to have. You know, most design these days is a bit of a remix. Relevant is absolutely key, and I'm going to show a bunch of different ideas that are completely different types of ideas, but they're all relevant to the brief. And yeah, an ideas come from anywhere, strike it any time of day, particularly for me. You know, most of my best ideas come when they shouldn't really, you know, on the shitter quite often. Out on a run, hardly ever sitting at my desk with a blank piece of paper and a blank screen, which is why I always just try and do other stuff. And also just have loads of projects on the go at the same time, because I feel like they all kind of inform each other. And yeah, that's kind of like how I like to have it. I like to have too many projects on, so that I'm bouncing around from project to project and kind of getting perspective on things. And for me, that kind of just leads to more interesting work. How do you get good ideas? I think that's a bit harder, and I think it's different for everybody. For me, it's about feeding my brain with stuff. So I just kind of just read stuff, listen to blogs, listen to podcasts, watch weird things. You know, just I try and get off of the usual kind of pathways that everyone kind of goes to. And you know, the more you know, the more connections and visual connections you can make. And you kind of, you know, that remix thing I was talking about, it's easier to do when you've got more things to chuck in the mix. So for me, it's about feeding your brain. So yeah, podcasts, books, gigs, exhibitions, films, whatever your thing is, definitely not design blogs. You know, if you start cruising around design blogs, you're just going to do work that looks like work on design blogs, and that's fine. But if you want to do stuff that feels new and exciting and, you know, break some ground, then you need to sort of look elsewhere. You know, if you go down the same pathway as everyone else, everyone's looking at those same blogs, you need to find something different. And it needs to be your thing, you know. So yeah, and just as an aside, I fucking hate mood boards, so it's like put that in most of my talks. And yeah, and then, you know, this is a massive generalisation, but I find that the designers that I've worked with that are just into design tend to make more boring work, or also be definitely more boring people. You know, I think people that are interested in the world are interesting, you know, and they make interesting work. And I think, you know, there's a definite correlation between that. And I'm sure the other speakers are going to talk about their influences and things like that. And it's, you know, it's not just design. I think that's the thing. You just got to kind of open up to all the other good stuff out there. And yeah, definitely. You know, I've worked with designers that are into running, into music, into whatever their thing is. They've got another passion outside of design that they absolutely love, and that informs their work, and it gives them perspective. And you know, it's not about just kind of churning out design work. It's about being a rounded person and an interesting person. So yeah, outside influence is really key. So yeah, I'm just going to sort of talk about ideas. For me, an idea, like I say, can come from anywhere, but it can also be anything really. And they don't always take the same form. They're not always the kind of smile in the mind, kind of penny drop, aha moment type thing. Sometimes they're, you know, completely different. And I'm just going to go through a few projects that we've done where, you know, sometimes the ideas are formed. So this is a graduate recruitment company. It's all about pathways and journeys. We create a typeface that has that kind of journeys thing baked into it. That's the idea, that's the identity, done. Sometimes it's words, you know. For me, the copywriting side of things is just as important as the visual side of things. And you know, we always work with writers, in this case Jim Davies, Total Content. And sometimes the words themselves are the idea, and you just kind of package those up in a font. So this isn't going to look so great on this screen, but this is for the Prison Radio Association. They did this thing called Straight Line. It was all about rehabilitating prisoners leaving prison. And hopefully the next slide we're going to read the title of it. So I had this idea that sort of straight line takes the negatives and makes it positive. So these were all kind of negative words to do with being in prison, and then the straight line thing in the middle, and it's sort of the opposite. Pretty simple idea. When I wrote it, it was a bit shit, but you give it to someone like Jim Davies and they make it beautiful, and you know, next thing you know, the poster's winning a DNA, which is nice. Sometimes an idea is two things in one. This is, I guess, a bit more of a smile in the mind kind of moment, but this is a business coaching company that we rebranded last year. Interestingly, also renamed them. Jim Davies came up with a name. You get a name like that, you end up with a gift, and you know, there's your idea. Sometimes an idea is hidden. So this one's for National Trust. Ferguson's Gang was an exhibition that we did, and they were like a kind of secret society of philanthropists who gave money to the National Trust. A bunch of women that went out and did this sort of vigilante things. And we just had this kind of hidden kind of face within the idea. Sometimes an idea is less is more. So sharing economy, forgot the sound effects. Common sound effects. Sharing economy are a membership group for Airbnb, Zipcar, that kind of stuff. Really simple idea, you know, economy. How can you show sharing in a logo type? Doesn't get any simpler than that. Sometimes it's the absolute opposite that you need for a brief. You know, this one is Lux Ply. They make plywood furniture out of offcuts and kind of bits that are left over. Their work's kind of almost like a sort of Frankenstein, a beautiful Frankenstein of stuff. And so we created a set of logos that are kind of ever-changing. So yeah, completely opposite kind of ideas, but completely opposite kind of business, and a completely opposite kind of brief. Both relevant, you know, which goes back to my kind of definition of what an idea is. And then sometimes an idea is just a system. You know, sometimes it isn't about clever logos or, you know, smile in the mind moments or any of that kind of stuff. Sometimes you've got to be much more kind of strategic, and you've got to hand over an idea that's going to work for a business in a practical sense. So UAL, University of Arts London, They got a brand all based around this colon. We were asked to create an identity for their employment and enterprise team. And we just hit on this idea that you can kind of make an E from the sort of negative space around the colon. You know, it's quite a simple idea, but it's also just a system and it works. You know, it's very practical for them. And it's got flexibility. You know, if we've come up with a kind of clever logo, I mean, for starters, you're not allowed to create sub-brands within the UAL kind of world. So the brief is like, how do you do it using the colon? And so, you know, this is a kind of like neat solution to that. So yeah, sometimes an idea is this kind of thing. And that's what, I guess, what I love about ideas is they always take the same form. And you know, that's what I guess keeps it kind of spicy. And then just every now and again, you get an idea that's an absolute gift, like this one. This is a local coffee shop to us. One of my designers spotted that you could kind of turn the name on its head and get these kind of cups and saucers, and it's just like, yeah, that's nice. Cool. Right, I'm going to just go into a little bit more detail on a couple of projects. And yeah, just talk about big ideas versus small ideas, because I think small ideas are just as important as big ones. And again, it's about relevance, you know, it's about when it's the right, appropriate time to do that. So, you know, it depends on the brief, context. Sometimes a big idea is what you need, you know, maybe it's a small company or it's a charity, or, you know, you need something hard-hitting that's going to sort of slap people around the face. But sometimes it's small ideas or a series of small ideas that's the right thing, and it's about kind of something having legs. So, Farm Jackets, so this is kind of big ideas for a small company. Farm Jackets are jacket makers based in Bath. They make really beautiful outdoorsy jackets, and I'm wearing one of them at the moment, because I mostly get paid in jackets. No word of a lie. And this first project I'm going to show you, literally, they'd only just really started, and they did literally pay us some jackets. And they're like, some of those jackets cost 800 quid, so it's, you know, quite good swap team. But yeah, they're an interesting offer. They're set up by a guy who's had mental health issues. He ran another clothing label before this and had a mental breakdown. Very open about that breakdown. Only makes jackets for men, although they are launching a women's range later in the year, which we're helping them with. And so he wanted to kind of create jackets where part of the brand is talking about men's mental health and being really open about that and helping people on that side of things. Men are notoriously bad at talking about their issues and things like that. And then you've got this tagline, which they already had before we started working with them, which is tough, beautiful. So this is some of their jackets. So they're really lovely, really expensive, handmade, all designed over here, made in Portugal, I think. Really lovely materials, everything, you know, everyone's paid properly through the process, hence it's expensive, but, you know, and then kind of fix them forever and all that sort of stuff, so it's all really good stuff. But they're completely online, so there's no shop you can go to, there's no kind of experience. You go on the website, you buy the jacket, it's inordinately expensive. It used to just turn up in a kind of brown box, which is a bit kind of deflating when you just spend 800 quid on a jacket. So they were like, we want to do something where the unboxing experience is more interesting, gets people talking. Their whole thing is about people sharing stuff on social media. They wanted people to kind of have a buzz around getting a jacket and talking about it. So the brief was really simple. It was, you know, make some sustainable packaging. It has to kind of build on this tough, beautiful positioning. And this was done in, I think, the second lockdown. And Phil, our design director, and me, we were both working sort of separately, so I was in the studio, he was at home. We both had the brief. We didn't spend much time in it, just because there was no budget. They were literally paying us some jackets. Spent about half a day on it each. Jumped on a Zoom call, and we both had the same idea, this idea of a beetle being a tough, beautiful thing that is out in nature, and they're a very kind of outdoorsy kind of brand. just felt perfect. So this was the first stage presentation, and I'm showing you this because it hardly ever happens, but this is one of those projects where actually it completely stuck, and they absolutely loved it. And the final pieces were exactly the same designs, slightly different box sizes and stuff. And yeah, this project was done fast, so they came to us in like November. They wanted the boxes in time for their Christmas kind of mail out. So I think literally from brief to artwork was 10 days. But you know, they're just super decisive, and you know, it just means you get to do good, brave work. Although this was kind of smashed out in 10 days, it's been like one of our most award-winning projects, and kind of got us on the map with packaging and all sorts of things. It's been really interesting. Copywriting. Normally I would have got Jim to write the copy on this stuff, but again, no budget, so I did this myself. And one of the parts of the brief as well was, I forgot to mention at the beginning, one of the lovely things they do is they give £10 from every jacket sale to a mental health charity. At the time we did this, it was Mind, and we came up with this idea, really simple idea, copy-based. Open up being the kind of sealing tape around the box. Obviously the double meaning of open up the box and opening up your emotions. And it was just a nice, really simple way of kind of nodding towards the fact that you've just given £10 to charity by buying this jacket without it being too preachy or pious or kind of in your face. Got a D&AD pencil for writing 2 words. Probably my career high. And yeah, and then the beetle thing just kind of runs through tissue paper, all that sort of stuff. So really simple idea, but quite striking. And then, you know, the best thing is continue to kind of just every time someone gets sent a box, they kind of post it on social media. And Well Dressed Dad is quite a sort of, apparently, I don't know about this stuff, but quite a well-known men's fashion blogger. And when the packaging launched, they sent him a jacket, and he posted that. So it's kind of like job done, you know. Well, as far as the client's concerned, super happy. And then we've sort of continued to work with them. So this was another project that we did last year, and so we're sort of doing it year on year now. So they switched their £10 from every jacket to Campaign Against Living Miserably, which is a suicide prevention charity. During lockdown, lots and lots of horrible things happened to people. Mental health really kind of plummeted, and so they kind of switched their allegiance in terms of who they support to calm. So they came to us and they were like, we want to put something in the jackets that tells people about this support that we do, and we want it to be permanent. And I was just having breakfast with Nick and Emma Lou, who are the husband and wife that run the business. And literally in the meeting, this is the sketch from the meeting, they were talking me through it, and I just had this idea that every jacket has a sort of spare button in it, and can we do something with a spare button? And again, it's like the open up thing, it's another kind of like, you know, play on words, but don't keep it buttoned. And I literally just showed them that sketch in the meeting, and they're like, oh. And so we just kind of did it, and that's what I love about working with these guys, is they just literally, they just get behind an idea, they get it, and we do it, and it's easy. So we did this as a pro bono project, just because, you know, we like working with charities and stuff, and this is, you know, really good for calm. So we're doing a different edition every year, different artists. So this was a local artist in Somerset, Jenny Gallagher. And we've just done another one with Corinne Cox, who is a Windrush Generation artist who's fantastic. So this one just launched literally a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, this is like, I guess this is like a big idea on a small thing. You know, it's sort of quite a powerful idea, and actually Nick's written to me and told me about men who have emailed him and said they've actually called up Calm and spoken to them because they were feeling, you know, on the edge. So it works, you know, that's, for me, that's kind of just
amazing. You know, that's kind of the power of design. And it's just a small thing, it's just a label inside a jacket, but if it saves one life, then that's pretty amazing. So. Squirrels. So this is our, I guess, the project that put us on the map maybe a couple of years ago when we did it. And one of the sort of bigger projects for us in terms of both the sort of household nameness of the client, but also the kind of scope of the project. And I'm showing this one because this is kind of less a big idea thing than a kind of series of lots of small ideas coming together to create a sort of wider identity. So Squirrels is the Scouts offering, so I don't know if anyone here has been a Scout, but it used to start at Beavers, which I think is sort of 6 onwards, and then go Cubs, Scouts. They wanted to create an early years provision, which is like 4 to 5 year olds, and they'd never done it before. They kind of piloted it in Northern Ireland, and it was a success, and they'd sort of gone into lockdown and felt like once lockdown ended, people would really want to get their kids kind of back out into nature and outdoors and kind of doing things like that. So they launched this project. So they came to us, it was a 10-way pitch at the beginning, press pitch. And we got down to the last 3 agencies, did a paid pitch just before Christmas 2021, I think it was. And yeah, we won the project, which was amazing. And just right up our street, you know, working with children, quite a few of us at Supple have parents, so around some kids, we sort of love doing that. We've done a lot of work with the NSPCC previous to this. And also, yeah, like my kids are Scouts. Phil, who works at my place, has been a Scout as a kid and stuff, so it's kind of close to our hearts. So this is the brand. Just a really simple logo type idea, really. But the wider, it's kind of the wider visual language where there's just like every touch point, every kind of thing is thought about and appropriate. So all the shapes are kind of based on nature, all the kind of textures and things, the tree rubbings that we've got kids to do, so there's kind of, you know, thought behind all that stuff. The Scouts brand actually had been rebranded a couple of years before we worked with them, so actually quite a slick kind of brand. So this had to kind of sit in that world. This I wanted to show, because although that logo that you see is like super simple and looks kind of effortless, that was really fucking hard to do to make it look good. And yeah, we had various stabs at it. We probably had done 20 versions, and I just felt like ours was good, but it wasn't great. And I wanted this thing to have legacy. I wanted it to still be on shirts in 20 years and still look fresh and good and solid. So we got a guy called Rob Clark involved who, if you don't know him, follow him on Instagram or whatever it is you do. He's just like the logo type guy. Like pretty much every brand you can think of, Rob Clark did it, or he's doing it, and you don't know it yet. He's incredible, and so, you know, this is like sketch to reality. You can see our kind of slightly shonky versions before, and then you can sort of tell when Rob gets involved. Being Rob sort of created like 20 different versions. Loads and loads of sort of back and forth and refinement and craft went into it. And this is the kind of fun thing that really worth all that effort, you know. But this is literally, I think, the thing that won us the pitch. So I mentioned Jim Davies earlier. He's a writer that we always work with on projects. I took a punt at the pitch stage and just phoned Jim and said, look, we've got this brief, it's a doozy. Would you be up for, you know, we'll pay you £100 or whatever, would you be up for writing sort of boilerplate, you know, about us kind of mission thing? He did. This is pretty much it, word for word, that was in our pitch, and it pretty much stuck, you know, apart from the other word, or the odd word changing. And this was the thing where we got feedback and we sort of won the project. Other people had shown similar ideas to us, but no one had thought about copy, no one had thought about photography, and those two things were the things that won us the job. And I think we showed this before any kind of sketches or ideas. We showed this pretty much up front in the pitch, and you know, I think when you read it, it really sort of sets the scene. And copy can do that. You know, copy can be an idea. Copy can be full of ideas, and I think it's something that the best designers know, and they always kind of team up with really good writers. And it's kind of a short, it's a much quicker way. Writing a bit of copy like that is worth like 100 slides, you know, that would take fucking forever to do in a pitch. And so, you know, I think it's really powerful when you get good words. So yeah, like I say, we did this kind of tree rubbing thing, and that gave us a visual language. We've done this whole strategy that was around Brownsea Island, which is where the scouting movement started, and Brownsea Island is the only place where red squirrels live. We based all the kind of graphic language on the flora and fauna of the island, colourways, everything like that. And then this project was really about, you know, they had in-house designers and stuff, so it was very much about handing over, a bit like the sort of UAL design system that I showed you. It was all about handing over a practical solution that they could take and run with. Lots of the sections are run by volunteers, so they needed to have like really easy ways of kind of updating things like posters and stuff, and just kind of like churning out on-brand, good-looking stuff, but really quickly. So we created tons and tons of templates. Everything was sort of outdoor. You know, they just kind of like need to print out posters on a photocopier and stick them up in a village hall or whatever. Sometimes they'll have an image, sometimes they won't. So we needed to be flexible. So we literally created 10 or 12 different versions of posters and things for every kind of scenario, so that they could just pick and choose the one that works. Right? Extensive guidelines. And then social media, they're really big on social media at Scouts, they really shit like that stuff. And we gave them tons and tons of assets again for that stuff. This was an idea that we had in the initial pitch, which was create a kids book, so engage those early years kids in the whole kind of Scouts and Squirrels story via sort of words and pictures. They really latched onto that, and this project was interesting because it kind of grew in scope, mostly because we just kept showing them stuff when we got excited. So things out of scope, we'd show them and they'd go, oh yeah, let's do that. And they'd find a bit of money for it. The project wasn't a big earner. You know, I think when we first pitched for the job, it was like a 15-20 grand job, but it ended up sort of being double by the time we finished. Still wasn't, you know, if we sat down and worked out the hours, it wasn't super well paid, but just an absolute dream to work on. And yeah, and they sort of came back to us halfway through the project and like, oh, that idea you had about a book, we've got some budget to do it, let's do it. So we got to illustrate this in-house, which was really lovely. A couple of my design team, really handy illustrators, and the client wrote it, and it was just a really nice little sort of collaboration. And it's been really successful as well. You know, they use it in the groups, kids take it home, they've sort of printed it very cheaply, so it's very affordable. On every page there's a hidden acorn, so there's kind of little kind of treasure trails for people to sort of find as they're going through the book. And then this is based on Brownsea Island, as I mentioned earlier. And then we got to do all the merch as well, which was really fun, so all the swag. Again, this was just from us kind of showing them stuff along the way and getting them excited about things. And this hoodie like broke the internet. Like they sold so many of them in the first kind of week of launching. And we, even now, we get grown-up people emailing us, asking us if they can buy a hoodie with a little tail on the back. It's kind of cute. Oh, this is good. So we did a backpack bag, and one of our designers got sent a picture from her mate who was at Glastonbury, and then some grown-ass men walking around with squirrels bags at Glastonbury, probably off their tits on them, do mate. So funny. And then the probably like my favourite bit of the whole project, and again this wasn't in scope at the beginning, is the badges. So the badges are like super iconic. If you've been a scout, it's all about achievements. So everything you achieve, you get a badge and you put it on your sleeve or whatever. And yeah, we got a call from the client saying, "Oh, we need to chat to you about badges. Have you got any time?" And I was like, "You." And to be honest, it was so fun. I would have done this for free. It was just a joy to work on. Really didn't feel like work, so a few of us kind of illustrated and designed all of these, and it's just so nice to get, you know, we sort of set these off as vector things with an illustrator, and then we got sent the samples and just had this bag of beautiful little kind of only a bit bigger than 50p. They're really cute, really beautifully embroidered, and it was just, yeah, I'd say it didn't really feel like work. That's my little niece, Teddy. Let's do it. And then photography, I talked earlier about projects kind of informing each other, and this was a quote that I remember reading when I designed some rolled art stamps years ago. And I put this quote into our pitch, and it was just all about thinking about photography in a way that feels real and photographing kids like on their level. So we worked with a guy called Tom Hall, and I went and did the shoot with him in suburban London, and it was great. We just like got the kids out playing, and he was just rolling around on his knees and photographing these kids and sort of just doing everything at their level. Also, I wanted to kind of photograph the kids in places that didn't, you know, traditionally Scouts has been quite kind of middle class, you know, forest school, a bit kind of, you know, not that accessible. And they wanted squirrels to feel much more accessible. And, you know, we wanted the shoot to just feel like what would really happen if you were, you know, in inner city Birmingham or London or Preston or wherever it is where, you know, yeah, you might be in an outdoor space, but there's probably going to be like an old tire there or something, you know. So we just wanted it to feel really real and sort of, you know, much more kind of gritty. Okay, this is the last one. This is Royal Mail, client that I've been working with since I worked for Jim at Hattrick, so nearly 22 years now. And this is actually a project where, and this doesn't happen very often, we actually pitched the idea to them. Video games, British video games is a massive kind of scene over here, and actually we're real kind of pioneers of video games, particularly through the 80s. My mate Sam, who I went to art college with, who runs a desk with me, runs a book company called Bitmap Books. It's all about retro games. And we were just having a pub lunch on a Friday once, and he was like, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if Royal Mail did some video game stamps?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's actually like a really good idea. Let's just do it." So we just did it. It was just before Christmas. Took a couple of days out of the studio, and together we designed some stamps. The next meeting I had when I went in to see Royal Mail, I kind of pulled it out from underneath the pile of stuff and I said, "Oh, can I just show you something else while I'm in?" And they seemed like a bit interested, but you know, I didn't hear anything for a few months. Went back in for another meeting, and still no mention of these video game stamps. Got in the lift with the client and leaving. I was like, "Oh, did anything happen with those game stamps?" He's like, "Oh yeah, they're on the stamp program. I'm sending you a PO next week." It's like, you fucking tell me. Anyway, so ridiculous. You know, literally remember walking out of the building of Royal Mail, phoning my mate Sam, going, "Not going to believe it. They're going to make the stamps." So just, you know, again, a bit like the squirrels badges, this didn't really feel like a job. And obviously they gave us a budget to do it. And so we always wanted to sort of have a sort of hidden idea within the stamps. We wanted to, what game was called Easter egg. And by one aside, we originally designed these with bitmap perps, so they had square perps rather than circular ones. So everything was kind of bitmapped. And it was on the artwork until the last minute, and then they had some production issue and it was going to cost 20 grand and it got jacked. I've got it still. But like working with Sam, you know, he knows everything about these games. And we basically had to like play the games and then screen grab them, which is, you know, obviously already just like thinking about and getting paid for it. And then Sam had some nice ideas, so we kind of like the Sensible Soccer stamp is recreating the 1966 World Cup winning goal. You know, just little things like that that only people in the know would know. Actually, the Sensible Soccer stamp, again, it kind of broke Twitter. It was trending on Twitter, and there's never been a stamp before or since that's trended on Twitter, so that's kind of good. But the nice thing was that we hit these messages, UV messages, so these are kind of all things that would kind of pop up in gameplay. And we literally went to the point of Sam worked out how you could rip the typeface from the games, and then we typeset them, you know, literally pixel perfect. And the nice thing about this was that it wasn't kind of in any of the marketing when they were marketing the stamps. So it took about a month before anyone spotted that these were there, and then it kind of built back up again on the internet, and all the nerds were basically like sharing it again, going, oh my god, get a UV light, have a look at these stamps. So yeah, just, you know, sometimes an idea should be subtle, and you know, that's the idea. You know, the idea that it's an Easter egg and it's hidden. It took a month before anyone saw the idea, but that's the kind of magic. So. And I think that's me.
We've saved the questions till the end, so we'll have a 5-minute break. Yeah.